Hey legends, Blake here with another video, and you may have noticed a bit of a lack of uploads lately. So today I thought I'd want to talk about burnout, especially when it comes to the aquarium hobby, how to avoid it, what tips I've used in the past, and ways to just invigorate your passion for it. Let's jump straight into the video. So to get started, I'm absolutely not burnt out of the hobby. I am burnt out a little bit of making videos for sure, but keeping fish is something that I've always loved doing and something that I don't picture myself giving up anytime soon. And that's because I've got a number of things that I put into place whenever I do start to feel a little bit tired, feel like it's a little bit of work. Oftentimes that comes from, and I've said it on the channel before, having an untidy fish room. I think it's when you're in the middle of projects and things are all over the floor, all over the bench at the back there. You got kind of tools, silicone, everything all over the place maybe, or even just empty containers of fish food or whatever it is. And I find that if you can just take the time out, do a massive cleanup, forget about those water changes, forget about even feeding on a day or two if you have to get the cleanup done, then when you walk in the next time, it's a breath of fresh air and you just love to be in here. I think the important thing about if you have a fish room or just a couple of tanks, the space that those things are in has to be an enjoyable space. If it's a space where things are really manic, stressful, and maybe it's in the middle of the living room where everything's noisy and there's always things going on, well, it's going to be hard to really just sit in front of this tank and take it in and enjoy it, isn't it? So number one, the biggest tactic I've found whenever things have felt a bit like burnout is an untidy space. So try and fix that if you can. Even if you have to move the fish tank to a more pleasant place, that might be worth doing. The other type of burnout that I've had sometimes is when you've had those sad times and maybe your favorite fish has passed away, or maybe a combination of your favorite fish isn't working out how you thought they would, and it's time to sort of give up on those kind of things and move on to the next thing. And this can be a really hard one because often it's not your fault. You know, the fish can pass away for a number of reasons, and it's not on purpose. That nobody purposefully kills one of their favorite aquarium fish. So these kind of things can be hard. It's worth at those times joining a fish club or reaching out to maybe your favorite person on social media or just somebody else in the hobby, whether that's to get tips or try and workshop what actually happened, or whether that's just a vent, because most of us have gone through a similar thing before. For example, me, my giant Saratoga that I absolutely loved and I had for years, even to the point where when the tank sprung a leak, he was in the bathtub for a couple of weeks. You know, one day he smashed into the side of the tank and broke his jaw, and that was a really sad time for me. And you know, since then I've just totally packed up that tank and moved it out. But there was definitely times in there where, you know, you feel real shame, you feel disappointment, you feel like, you know, is all the work really worth it? So at those kind of times, it can be helpful to have somebody to talk to. Another time that the hobby can feel like work and really bring you down is at the time that those bills come in. They're never easy for anyone. And for me, right about now, at the end of winter is when my biggest bills come in, because there's just not as much daylight for my solar panels to draw energy from. I'm spending the most on heating and all that sort of stuff right now. So reminding yourself that things are a bit cyclical could be one way to go. You might want to downsize in winter and upsize in summer, although most often people in summer want to be outside and out and about. So maybe you just downsize in general to a more manageable level so that these bills aren't such a stress factor on your life. Another one is changing your light cycles to be on during the day. If you do draw solar power, that can be a really helpful one as well. And another unusual one might be to have your lights come on in the middle of the night, which might sound a bit counterintuitive given what I've just said about the solar panels, but what it can do is offset your heating, because the lights produce heat. So if you have the daylight heating up to here and then the night cooling way down, and then the daylight's heating up and light cooling right down, well, if you can have the lights turn on when the cool down part happens, then it might cool down a little bit less. So you kind of smooth out those curves and it might help you with your heating bill. So it depends what's drawing the most energy, and you'll have to assess that for yourself. But there are strategies that you can put in place to save money in that way. look at efficiencies with your heating, with your lighting. And yeah, it's always a hard one with bills though, let's be honest. Another time that the hobby has definitely stressed me out is when I've had way too many difficult breeding projects on the go. If you are like me and fish breeding and cracking the code for a species is what you get enjoyment out of, then just be mindful of picking up too many obscure or different breeding projects all at once. I always like to have a few tanks, like for example, myself down here with all my endlers. I've got a few, CPD and Emerald Rasbora breeding groups that I know I can always reliably get fry out of. Having those easy wins can be really helpful to keep your motivation high, even if you're really struggling with that species that you'd love to be able to breed. It'll also allow you to be able to concentrate more energy on that 1 or 2 tanks because you're not having to split it between 5 or 6 different species that all have so many different variables that they're trying to work to get right to be able to get in that breeding mode. So don't take on too much all at once and have a few easy wins around the place that you can rely on. The other one that often stresses people out, because unlike other hobbies where you can have seasons, you can pause it and just pack everything away in a cupboard for a while. These fish are animals, they're pets, right? So we can't just give up on them for a few months at a time whenever they get stressed out. And I think that's where a lot of people sort of get burnt out with the hobby, because the water change schedule is always there, staring you in the face or being in the back of your mind. You do always have to do your feedings. You do always have to do all these things. You can't just pack everything up for winter and get started again when it's a warmer month, spring and autumn and all that sort of stuff. So for that, I'd suggest only keep about half of the tanks that you think that you can keep, because that way, when you do have a whole bunch of birthday parties, a whole bunch of events and all that stuff on every weekend, you miss out on those water changes, it's not such a big deal because you could do 1 or 2 here and there, and it's not the end of the world. Also, keeping lightly stocked tanks will reduce your demand for those sorts of maintenances. So don't worry about algae and all that so much. So long as the water is clean and the fish are fed, the rest will handle itself eventually. And the other thing to realize is that we feed our fish way too much. Fish food these days is really high quality for the most part and has a high protein value to it, a high amount of nutrients to it. So you don't actually have to feed it every day. In fact, I often skip every second day here in the fish room with feedings, and I feed a variety of different things to compensate for that. But you absolutely don't need to feed every single day. There's a lot of fat cats and a lot of fat dogs around the place. There's also a whole lot of fat fish. I think it's within kind of human nature to overfeed, to show our care and affection for these things, and because we enjoy seeing things sort of thrive and have that enjoyment. But for the most part, we'd be better off feeding less. And I quite often skip days here and there with feedings, and there's been absolutely no detriment. And we've heard heaps of stories, and I've said them myself, about going away on holidays for 7 to 10 days with no feeding required at all, and things are absolutely fine. So there's no need for daily feedings, twice daily feedings or anything like that, except in very specific circumstances. And the last thing I think is really important when it comes to feeling a little bit of burnout in the hobby, and it's something that I've had to learn across the journey as well. It's about open communication. If you are being stressed because you have kids and a spouse like I do, and you think that, oh, I just can't go into the fish room for the day. I really need the afternoon or the morning or whatever to just get everything done, and I can't do it piece by piece, and it's really stressing me out trying to juggle all of these things. I've often carried that around, but then got to a point where I just kind of said to my partner, hey, I need to just have the afternoon if I can, just catch up on things with the fish. And I'm really lucky, my partner's been really supportive, and I don't really know why I hesitated in the first place, because she was like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So sometimes just ask the question, just say, hey, can I buy an afternoon here and there just to jump in and get everything done? You might even find that they'll help you pitch in and carry a bucket here or two for you, which is a godsend as well. So saying out loud to those people around you, whether that's your mum and dad, your brother, your sister, or your partner or your kids or whatever it is, say that you need a little bit of help, whether that's just time or actual physical help. And people are pretty often forthcoming. We often feel like we have to just hide away in our little hobby areas like this, but the more that you welcome people in, the better. Another option could be to get involved in an aquarium club or get some fish keeping friends and have a bit of a working bee. You know, Monday night at my place, we'll just smash everything out and get it all done. Tuesday night at somebody else's, Wednesday night at somebody else's, and so on and so forth. Pitch in, help each other, and many hands make light work. So if you can communicate, say that things are not going as smoothly as you thought, and maybe you need just a few hours to crack that code, then for the most part, you might find that it's just a matter of speaking up to get it done. Other than that, you know, the hobby is meant to be something that is enjoyed. So if it is stressing you out, if you are having a hard time of it, it might be time to reevaluate what you're keeping, how many things you're keeping, or the way that you're keeping it. Fix those things up and enjoy it again. Get refreshed. Maybe move on a few species that are seeming like they're becoming work. Bring in a few new ones that might kind of bring a bit of extra excitement in another project as well. And, you know, enjoy it for what it is. So if the video has helped get some perspective on things, then it always helps me out to smash like, hit subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Hopefully I'll be back with some more consistent uploads. But other than that, happy fish keeping. I'll catch you on the next one.